Welcome to the latest edition of the Pump Fake, everybody. I'm Jarrett Bailey, joined by my good friend, mentor, Mike Tanier. It's great to see you as always, my friend.
Great to be here.
So,
Do you like my handle? Do you like my handle?
I did, yes. When I saw that they had for those who don't know and to listen to this as a podcast, New York Times, just getting rid of their entire sports section of everything, and I just don't get it. This is where the world is in terms of journalism, Mike Tanier.
Yeah, and of course they bought The Athletic a couple of years ago, or merged with The Athletic, however to put that. But I always got the impression that The Athletic does its thing, which is being sort of an ESPN. New York Times Sports had its own little world where it was like, it's the world of tennis and golf and cycling and things like that, and the business of sports. But like someone like me, I still got to go in there and talk about touchdowns and games and victories, and not everything was like completely up in the stratosphere in terms of that. But they got rid of all of that, and I think that they're phasing that out slowly. But let's just say it was a little bit of a gut punch at the time that they did it, because that happened a few weeks after Aaron Schatz left Football Outsiders, basically murdering football, not mercy killing, I should say.
Yeah,
pulling the plug on the life support of Football Outsiders. And so I was like, two major institutions disappeared under my legs as I was running, like Hines Ward sprinting away from Bane in the movie, and like the crack opening up under it. Like I was Hines Ward like this, and just Gotham getting swallowed behind me.
It always comes back to Batman with you and I.
Mm-hmm. Batman and the Steelers.
Amen. Today, if you're watching this on YouTube or listen to it afterwards, you see we are drafting every NFL division. So how that will work, I'll let you go first in the spirit of you being the guest on the show. We'll kind of break down the selection, break down each team in the division, and keep this thing flowing. So with the first pick in the NFL division draft, who are you taking?
By the way, is it the best teams or the most wackadoodle storyline type of thing?
I mean, however you want to go about it. The world is your oyster.
We'll go with the best teams, and I'm going to stay local here, and I'm going to start by picking the NFC East, because we have that wonderful two-team race at the top between the Eagles and Cowboys that is hotly contested, and then you have a very solid Giants organization and roster that made way too much noise because everything revolves around Saquon Barkley for some reason. But this is a solid team, solid in the trenches, like good organization. They should win a bunch of games. And then you have the Washington Commanders, who exist still.
I think the Washington Commanders could be a very fun wild card this year. I've said that for the past 3 years about the Commanders. Like last year was like my whole Carson Wentz hill that I died on. And
die you did.
But I think you have Sam Howell, who I think has a higher ceiling than any of the quarterbacks they had last year. It's going to, like most teams, it'll come down to how good their quarterback is. But they've got the weapons. McLaurin's good. Jahan Dotson proved to be, a reliable number 2 in that offense. I think Brian Robinson's a fine back. They got a nice collection of running backs. Defensively, their front seven's still really good, full of former first-round picks. We'll see if they decide to hold on to Chase Young or ship him out. Secondary-wise, they're solid. They're not anything. I don't think they're amongst the elite rosters in the league, but I think last year, quietly, they were one of the better defenses in football. But nobody, really paid too much attention to that because they've only finished with 7-10 last year with the Washington Commanders. So, what do you think they renamed themselves again? By the way, apparently that's happening.
I think they're going to rename themselves X. I was like, or they'll name themselves Y. Why is this happening? Again, they have that strong front four. We know they got, especially if Young actually is healthy, which is one of those things. Just completely off the tangent, I was reading a thing about the Jets, and Mekhi Becton is hurt. And everyone is shocked that Mekhi Becton is hurt. It's like at some point you have to realize this is how it's going to go, folks. Yeah. It might be a little bit like that with Young, but I just looked at the Commanders plus 300 to make the playoffs.
I don't think it's a horrible bet to make.
I don't think it's a horrible bet to make because again, you're not talking about winning that division or anything else like that. You're talking about getting a 9-8 out of this roster and things like that. And if Hal doesn't kick in, Brissett can come in and play 500-ish ball if other things break right. So I don't think that's a ridiculous bet along the way. In terms of fourth best teams, we're going to pick some divisions. There are some ridiculous fourth best teams.
Yeah.
Commanders, everything you said about them was true.
I think that my hot take one of my hot takes of the offseason, that the Commanders will finish with a better record than the Giants. I think that the Giants are taking a step back this year. I think giving $40 million to Daniel Jones was a bit of a reach. And I've said this throughout the offseason. It feels to me like the Jaguars, after they went to the AFC title game in 2017, were like, damn, I guess we got to give Blake Bortles some sort of money. And we just went to
Right.
We were a non-fumble away from going to the Super Bowl with the guy. We might as well bring him back, and then the floor fell out from under them. I don't think they're going to be that bad. Like, Brian Dable's a good enough coach. Wink Martindale's a good enough defensive coordinator where they'll still tread water and still be a 7-8 win team and be relevant. But I don't think that you look at their schedule this year as well compared to last year. It's going to be a more difficult schedule. I don't know, man. The Saquon Barkley noise as well. I think that New York takes a little bit of a step back.
Yeah, I can actually see it for a lot of those reasons. And the way they gave Jones the money, I don't think that was terrible, because if you look at the structure of the contract,
it's more team friendly than on the surface.
It's more team friendly than on the surface. And Jones is not Bortles. He doesn't have the personal habits of Bortles, for example. But it's funny that you mention it, because I was looking at the FTN Almanac projections, the Aaron Schatz DVOA projections, because remember, Football Outsiders is not dead. DVOA is not dead. The Almanac is not dead. Aaron is alive and well. Trust me. But we have Washington at 7.8 wins and the New York Giants at 6.7 wins.
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? So if you want to look at some kind of parlay or better record, like that kind of thing, I'm not going to go searching for them. And you like that, I don't think that's a bad bet at all.
I love it. All right. So I will get on with my pick, and it'll be a homer pick because I will take the AFC North. I think that the AFC North is fascinating for several reasons. I think top to bottom, probably the deepest division in football. Cincinnati's going to be good. We know that. The thing with Baltimore is, are their guys going to stay healthy? Because Lamar's not finished the last 2 seasons. Odell Beckham, we know about his injury history. I think Rashad Bateman is already dealing with the ankle.
He's Mekhi Becton and yes.
And Chase Young, yes.
Yeah.
Defensively, they're going to be good. Like, their front seven's quietly really good. I like Pierce. I like what they have with their defensive ends and everything. I think that, we talked about Chase Young already. A team that could be in the market for another edge rusher would be the Ravens, and if it would definitely fit their MO like a glove if they decided to go and get him.
Sorry.
This is on the fly journalism here.
I don't think that was journalism. I will get it later.
Okay. But yeah, if the thing about Baltimore is health. Their secondary I don't love outside of like Marlon Humphrey. Like Rock Ya-Sin's going to be their number 2. Depends on how you feel about Rock Ya-Sin. And then I think my hottest of takes has been that the Steelers will win the division this year. Wow. That's not to say, you've known me long enough to know that I'm a pretty grounded fan.
Yeah.
I think I have realistic expectations, and I don't know what's happened this past offseason where I've been the guy like pounding the table saying, listen, I don't think that Pickett's going to be better than Burrow or better than Lamar.
Right.
I think that they have the best head coach in the division, though. They have the best defense in the division. And if Kenny Pickett can just be Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, and everyone else lives up to their potential, they have an easy schedule. They play the AFC South and NFC West. I think that everything will be more than okay in Pittsburgh, especially coming off a 9-8 year, facing an easier schedule with a better roster. So that is my pitch for the Steelers winning it. And then Cleveland is, of course, the wild card, depending on how a certain number 4 performs. If he can, look anything like he was before everyone found out that he's kind of a scumbag. So we'll see with Cleveland. And this feels like kind of how the AFC West felt last year, where everybody's like, oh man, all 4 of these teams could be playoff teams.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them ended up being terrible.
Right.
I don't know if anybody in this division would be terrible,
right.
But if I'm banking on one of them to disappoint or to be the team that's consistently disappointed, and that's the Browns.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I like the way the Browns, they went to the Greenbrier in West Virginia. And I don't know if they were just getting Deshaun away from everything, or if that's like going right into the hornet's nest, that you're way out in the middle of nowhere somewhere. And it's like, I found a massage parlor where, nope, bad idea. Bad idea. I've been out there, and the Greenbrier is actually a 5-star resort. And then there's nothing for 50 miles in either direction except the most West Virginia-y towns you could ever.
Sure.
Yeah, so that would be a good place for the Browns with Johnny Manziel to go. It's like, we dare you to find something out here to do, and he would have. That's the worst part. He would have been cow tipping or something. Where was I? Oh yeah, the Steelers. I think you are grounded. I mean, I think that that Steelers fans talking up Kenny Pickett sound a little crazy.
Yeah, I'm not one of the ones who's, already proclaiming him to be a top 5 quarterback, or like a certain account saying that he, you would take Kenny Pickett over Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Like, you're an idiot if you think that. But in terms of what they have around him, as long as he doesn't mess everything up and is fine, then I think they'll be fine.
Who said that?
He got roasted by the Reds Twitter account. It's Pickensburg, I think is the Twitter.
Oh,
handle.
I mean, then, yeah.
It wasn't a media personality or anything like that. Although Andrew Filippione down here for Pittsburgh Radio is one of those guys who just, loves Pickett and doesn't shy away from it, which, I mean, tip of the cap to you. But
and your radio guys, they're supposed to come up with these angles and things like that. There's a level of goofiness that you kind of assume. Sure. With that, I was going to say, I think that Steelers fans are crazy talking up Pickett until I listen to Atlanta Falcons fans. Desmond Ridder apparently arrived last year when nobody was looking in these 2 games he played at the end, one of which was against a team that was like resting its starters or whatever. But Steelers are strong overall. Ravens, when you look at how they structure everything, and we've already seen a couple of seasons with like half of a Lamar Jackson, they still wind up winning. I have a hard time putting anybody but the Bengals at the top right now.
That's fair. Totally understandable.
Right. They've done all of the work to create this team right now, and Burrow is at that high level. Top to bottom, this is the strongest division. Yeah. But again, if the Browns are your number 4 with the improvements they made in the offseason and the likelihood that Deshaun will play better, and with the 3rd best, 4th best offensive line in the NFL, maybe conservatively, I think for the Browns, that's a strong combination there.
Definitely one of the strongest interior offensive lines in the NFL right now. They're just loaded from center to guard.
Right.
Now, one little footnote here. No team has won the AFC North 3 consecutive years since division realignment. The Bengals have won it the last 2, so they would be the first team to win it, get the hat trick since 2001 when the divisions were realigned. So something to keep in mind there as well. So yeah, if I had to, kind of power rank them or, say how I think they'll finish, I think it'll be Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, probably with the same record. I think Pittsburgh, will get in on some sort of like better division record, what have you. And then Baltimore 3rd, Cleveland 4th would be how I'd project them to finish.
You can get the Steelers to win the division plus 450.
They have the lowest odds of winning the division. They haven't finished last in the AFC North/Central since Ronald Reagan was president. Yet every year, everybody's like, you know what? I think the Steelers are going to be bad, and then every year they're not.
And there's nothing to indicate they'll be bad.
No, they got better. I don't understand.
Right, and it's like, this looks like it could be one of their 9-8 type seasons. And yes, absolutely, they're going to crater. There's nothing to suggest that.
No. Unless Kenny Pickett is god awful, then you got something to worry about. If you got to turn the keys over to Mitch Trubisky or God help us Mason Rudolph, then we'll start worrying.
Even then, your number 3 is a guy who's played games in the NFL.
They've got a deep quarterback room where you've got a guy who you hope is the future of your franchise, a guy who's been to a Pro Bowl and quarterbacked a Pro Bowl team before, and Rudolph, who didn't burn the place down when they had to rely on him.
Right. And a coach who's been like, I can manufacture 16 to 13 wins to get us to the wild card or whatever. Yeah, all of that's there.
Now, if they do that, then their ceiling is getting murdered by Kansas City or Buffalo in the wild card round. But it's getting there. That's half the battle. Yeah,
and at plus 450, that could be a hell of a battle to win that division if you're feeling it. I'm not feeling it, but you are.
It could be. All right, your next pick.
I got 2 obvious choices. I'm going to take the most obvious of the obvious choices. I'm going to take the AFC East. Okay, well, I think we have 4 strong teams. Again, the weakest team is probably the Patriots.
Yeah.
So the weakest team is a team with Bill Belichick and what's probably going to be a very, very good defense.
That defense is going to be nasty.
Nasty defense and a lot of 16 to 13 wins and 16 to 13 losses.
I'm seeing a lot of overlap with Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick.
a lot there. So Tomlin sort of has more experience doing that, whereas Belichick was out there like, I got Brady, fuck you, you know? But slowest offense I've ever seen, and kudos to the Patriots for trying to recreate the magic of the 2019.
Are they the most boring team in the NFL?
And they try, but it's not the Vikings are boring.
Oh, I disagree. I thought the Vikings were fun last year.
Well, Justin Jefferson's fun, and everybody
exactly.
along, right? Well, this is the Vikings without Justin Jefferson and with a cosplayer of Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, what we're probably going to see is sort of this weird attempt to fluff Mac Jones up, that he's anything up but like the baseline you can possibly get it done guy, and he'll get those 16-13 wins, or Zappy will get them. But we go above that. Of course, we've got Dolphins news today. Jalen Ramsey got hurt.
Yeah.
But let's hope. I don't want the story of the year of the Dolphins to be Tua's hurt and Ramsey's hurt and Tyreek's punching guys. I'd like it. Did you see the video, by the way?
I did see the video.
Like, on the one hand, this is not like a hard punch.
No, but at the same time, like, you can't really give Tyreek Hill any sort of benefit of the doubt right now with his past. And
it's a stray. Like, this guy is standing there, and he's like one of the guys he's walking past. I can't tell if he's saying, hey, you have to go this way or whatever, and just get. Now, as a school teacher who might have been in the hallway, and like some 16-year-old does that to me. Like, okay, you write them up, and then you bring the parents in and everything, and you say, I'm not calling this an aggravated assault because that's insane. But I need you to sit for some detentions, and we need to have a talk about this. But if this was a 16-year-old who had tens of millions of dollars in the account, I would certainly put the assault charge in and waiting for the settlement to come, which is, I think, what this individual did. And the NFL probably put a 4-game suspension on him, whatever. I don't want that to be the story of the Dolphins. I want touchdowns and excitement and shootouts. Jets are the Jets. We don't have to talk about them. And
what is your honest opinion? But do you think that they're going to be anything of note in your opinion, outside of just being, Aaron Rodgers being there?
I keep seeing them having the Packers season where you get to the second round of the playoffs, and that something stupid happens because the team is not built that well, and because Rodgers in these situations, all of that accretion of little Rodgers BS, like the offense has to be a certain way, and some guys aren't talking to him, and other things, all those little problems, that don't hurt you when you're kicking the crap out of, the Lions 4 years ago and everything. They hurt you when you face the 49ers in the playoffs. They hurt you when you face the healthy 2 years ago Rams in the playoffs because you're not completely aligned and coalesced. That's what the Jets are going to be this year, except I think they've got a weaker Rodgers than the Rodgers we saw 3 or 4 years ago. Okay. Yeah. And the Bills are like their own worst enemy, and they've got to solve that. But it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of putting that the Bills are their own worst enemy. I think that we now look, I think it does get downplayed a little bit that they went through a ton last year outside of the DeMar Hamlin thing.
Right.
I mean, they had to the stuff with having to go to Detroit to play a game, having to play like 3 games and like 17, whatever the number was. They had doing a lot of, traveling that they didn't expect to have to do. It was a lot of weird stuff, dealing with all the injuries. Like they didn't have Trey White until Thanksgiving. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer both missed time. Micah Hyde was gone from like week 4 onwards because of his neck.
Right.
And they didn't have, like, once Von Miller went down, it felt like their season kind of ended because they didn't have anybody else reliable to be a go-to pass rusher. And look, I love Bills Mafia. I'm a big Bills guy. Mm-hmm. If I see one more person slide into my mentions talking about how great AJ Epinesa or Boogie Basham are, I'm gonna snap. No, they're not. When they were playing opposite of Von Miller and he was getting double teamed, I'm sure that it was a lot easier for them to get to the quarterback. But by themselves, we saw what they were, no Von Miller against Bengals backups in the playoffs. They couldn't get to Burrow.
Right.
So bringing in Leonard Floyd, I think that was a very smart move.
Yeah.
Just to get them at least somebody established who can be a legitimate number 2 opposite of Von Miller. They're hoping that Greg Russo can become that.
Right.
But man, and then at linebacker, you don't have Trey Edmonds there anymore. It's going to be Matt Milano and who?
You can get a linebacker. You can get a linebacker when everything else is functioning. I don't think McDermott's going to be like, I can't figure out how to get a linebacker ready. That's not an issue.
And having, Matt Milano, who's arguably the number 2 off-ball linebacker in the league, it definitely solves a lot of your issues. And then can Dalton Kincaid be this number 2 guy that they're hoping he can be as kind of this big slot, power slot, tight end guy?
Yeah, that's weird. They're like, our solution is we're going to make a tight end a slot receiver. Like, oh, no one's thought of that before. Good thinking. But yeah, I can kind of see it because if you are in 12, 12 personnel.
Yeah.
With them, and you have an option threat, and you have a running threat, and of course you have an over-the-top bomb threat, you can structure that offense in a way that's really scary because it's like, oh, are we in base all the time and Stephon Diggs and speed on the other side of this?
Yeah.
Are we going to play in nickel because they can just hammer us? It makes sense. I think of the Bills. The Bills are the team people accuse the Cowboys of. Like the Cowboys generally lose because they're not quite as good as the teams they're facing.
Right.
But people are like, the Cowboys lose because they do something stupid because they have a moral failing or shortcoming. The Bills are that team. Like, oh my God, it's snowing and we don't know how to handle it. So you're the goddamn Bills. How can you not handle the snow? Oh, it was hot in Miami. Like, do you need to be in air conditioning? Do you boys need a dome? What's going on here? Like, it's windy. Oh, it's windy. That's the problem. And even the Von Miller thing, obviously there are injuries, but it's like you've been drafting first and second round edge rushers for a couple of years. And what you have Boogie Basham Epinesa, that's what you have to show for it.
And that's another good point. Like, these aren't just guys they took in the middle of the round. These are first round picks, second round picks that they've invested heavy draft capital into and haven't really seen too much of a return on investment.
Right. And they're the worst team I've ever seen when leading by 10 points.
I don't know. Baltimore last year might have given them a run for their money.
Baltimore is the worst team on 4th and inches in the history of the world. Like they go, it's almost like the Madden slider goes. Like Madden 2006, they were mad that you were going for it too much. Like, no, we're going to make everybody stupid right now. The Bills get like that when they have 10, 14-point lead. And that's the most, I do this on Bills radio. It's the most solvable problem in the world. You have like a 96% chance of winning if your ground game is under control, if your short passing game is under control, if everyone's playing properly, if your pass rush is good, because then when you give the ball back, these are all solvable problems. And maybe Kincaid's going to help because 12 personnel when you're leading can be very effective.
Yeah. And I know that we already talked about New England real quick, but I do want to talk quickly about Mac Jones because good for him. It's very lucky for him that Zach Wilson was in his division because I understand that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge at offensive coordinator is like, here, hold on, I'm even wearing a Beavis and Butthead t-shirt to commemorate how horrible those two were. I get it. However, 26 in EPA per play, 14 touchdowns, 11 picks, a lot of bad throws. At some point, like we've seen plenty of good quarterbacks overcome not good coaching. I think that you already kind of touched on it. There is certainly a low cap on what Mac Jones can be. I think we've seen the best of him. I think his rookie year is probably as good as it's going to get for the Patriots with Mac Jones, which is okay. They were kind of dealt a good hand because the teams that they played, like there was a lot of weird injury stuff, playing Buffalo in a wind tunnel, that one weird game. And then when you play a real team in the playoffs, you're going to get boat raced because you don't have the quarterback to keep you in it. So I think that's kind of their ceiling. I think they're going to continue to be the most boring team in football, especially offensively, where like they just gave $11 million a year to Devontae Parker. They brought in Juju for a similar price. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be Ramondre Stevenson and Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki. Give them hell.
The 2019 Dolphins attack.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones, he had bad coaching last year. That's very true. Bad coaching can ruin a quarterback early in his career. Sure. I'm not saying he is ruined, but that is not something that you just shrug off right away. He's had really slow receivers for his entire career. They haven't solved that problem. And at some point, your clock becomes bad, and your understanding of the window you can throw to becomes bad because you don't have anything like Justin Jefferson to throw to. Yeah. And the offense was not well coordinated. He has a good offensive line in general, but like that, he still took a lot of sacks last year. So sure. I'm not it's going to be a boring team, but Belichick is coaching it. So 8 wins, 8.5, whatever.
They were what, like 7 wins last year, 8 wins last year?
Yeah. Let me look up their over under here, the base over under. It's going to take me a second this year.
If I had to guess, the over under is going to be 7.5.
Base over under is you are correct. 7.5 with the over at plus with 115. They don't want people taking that under at minus 135.
I'm still taking it. I think 7 and 10 is probably what this team goes, especially with Miami, probably going to be better, especially defensively with Fangio coming in. The Jets should be better theoretically. I mean, they were a 7-win team last year with Mike White and Zach Wilson, the Mormon MILF hunter, as you so famously dubbed him. So I think that they'll be better than Buffalo's Buffalo. So
right. There's no sweep of the Jets here.
No.
Right.
This is not the Mark Sanchez Jet years where you could just kind of pencil in 2 wins against New York.
Real quick, New England has the hardest schedule according to Aaron Schatz's DVOA on the FTN Almanac. So they have
in terms of the division or the league.
across the league. Hardest
Oh my!
schedule in the league. I'm sitting here with my computer open, so I guess I can pull this up right now because I'm going to talk about it when we talk about the Saints eventually. Regular season 2023. They start out Eagles, Dolphins, at Jets, at Cowboys. What other goodies are on here? They got the Chiefs at home late in the season. They've got the Steelers at Pittsburgh.
That game at home against the Chiefs will be a game that, like, I'll bet the Patriots to cover because the Chiefs will have like one weird game where they should kill a team, but they play with their food for too long and they'll hang around. I feel like that'll be that game.
Yeah, 6 holding penalty Chiefs game. That one, yes. The touchdown called back by false, illegal.
The Malik Willis takes a game against the Chiefs into overtime.
Right. The third tight end running the Wildcat at the goal line, and there's a fumble. That Chiefs game will be against the Patriots. Blake Bell trying to They're gonna try something with Jody Fortson playing quarterback. They're gonna do that thing they did against the Raiders where they do the ring around the rosy and line up formation. Somebody will mess it up and they'll take a 5-yard penalty. Something dumb where they couldn't be bothered to care about that game, where it'll end up being like 27-20 in the fourth quarter for some reason. Right.
Hilarious.
Right. No, that's it. That's exactly how it's going to be. Just bet the Patriots to cover right now. Just do it.
Good idea. All right. So while we're on the Chiefs, I will take the AFC West as my next pick. I'm like, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're going to be 13 wins probably, if not the number 1 seed, the number 2. They're going to be a threat to be in the Super Bowl again and win it again because they've got Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and a good offensive line and a defense. Now, the Chris Jones thing, I think they get a deal done. Like, I think he's their second most important player behind Mahomes. You just look at his production. He's first in everything when it comes to defensive tackles and productions. Overall, just like pass rushing statistics, he's amongst the elite in the league as a defensive tackle. So I think they'll get the deal done. The Chargers fascinate me because I've drank the Chargers Kool-Aid the past 2 years. I don't want to do it again and look like an idiot, Like, we talked about Baltimore staying healthy. The Chargers have had a major problem with that too. Rashawn Slater missed time. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both missed time last year. They drafted Quentin Johnson. He'll be their outside threat. They're probably going to bump Keenan Allen to be that big slot. Can they stay healthy? Can Joey Bosa stay on the field? Can J.C. Jackson stay on the field? Like, all of their big name guys just need to stay healthy. And then if Kellen Moore proves to be any sort of godsend and upgrade over Joe Lombardi, then I think they'll be fine. But I need to see it with the Chargers before I just, crown them as, all right, definite playoff team. Even though they were last year and should have advanced in the wild card round, they did the most Brandon Staley thing that you could do and give up one of the largest comebacks in NFL history.
Right.
I'm very hesitant about the Chargers. I know Herbert's fantastic. He just got paid and he deserves it.
Yep.
I'm hesitant about the Chargers.
I don't blame you. They're minus 125 to make the playoffs, which, I mean, they should be a playoff team at this point. You talk about Justin Herbert, and he's a top whatever quarterback.
By the way, Dolphins-Chargers week 1. We're going to enter this hellscape right off the bat of Tua versus Herbert number 2. It's going to be hellacious.
Right. And that's a fool's errand on the one hand. On the other hand, Herbert's $236 million guaranteed contract comes out to infinity dollars per playoff win.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, like wins aren't a quarterback's that whatever. It's like there is a lot of paying for it. Now it's time to start doing the thing, both to Herbert and the team around him, of course. So I'm a little bit wait and see because if Kellen Moore, I think he's an upgrade over Lombardi, but how much of an upgrade is he really?
That's the thing. Like Lombardi, they're both their offensive schemes are focused on the short and intermediate game. It's just Lombardi, I think, is more focused, outside the numbers. Kellen Moore is over the middle. If that turns out to be what they needed and they let Justin Herbert, move the ball downfield a little bit more than Joe Lombardi did last season, then great.
Right. And I guess one of the problems I have with Kellen Moore coming in here is Kellen Moore's last quarterback led the league in interception percentage last year. Yeah. Now, like, criticizing Dak is like criticizing Herbert. This, my computer will explode here. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, a lot of Dak's interceptions, very true, were like miscommunications and stuff. Mm-hmm. So who's responsible for miscommunications? Offensive coordinator? Now, a Kellen Moore supporter will say, no, that was McCarthy. And I like that we can always like take the parts we don't
We
like.
can always find somebody that we can collectively agree. Okay, it was that guy's fault.
Right. But again, Chargers, you put the Chargers second place wild card. That makes sense. I just wonder, like, when are we going to start putting them? Okay, the Chiefs are number one. When are we going to start saying things like we say about the Eagles and Cowboys? You know, they're the top. We don't say that about the Chiefs and the Chargers. We say the Chiefs. And then we start talking about the Chargers. And I guess we'll now start talking about Sean Payton and the 50 dirty hands and the Jets catching strays. And did you read the part where he said, you know, that was what was the problem with Russell Wilson? And he said some of that was the parents' fault.
Was he referring to Hackett?
Hackett and them, but like the parents?
Yeah, it was a weird. I mean, don't get me wrong; it was funny from an outsider's perspective. But those two teams play each other, I believe, in October this year. I think October 19th, week 5.
Week 5, circle it. Obviously, we're all going to make a big deal about it. Most of these guys don't care, but there was no reason to drag the Jets into it. But when he's saying, you know, not all of it was Russell's fault, some of them was the parents. Sean Payton doesn't talk like that in front of Jarrett Bell unless he knows he's like broadcasting a message to the freaking universe and to Russell Wilson. I'm not Broncos versus Jets is going to be interesting. I think Broncos versus Broncos is in the process of happening.
That is a very good way of putting that. I think it'll go one of two ways. We'll find out that, Russ is he's fallen off a cliff unlike anything we've ever seen.
Right.
Or the more likely option is they'll be better.
Yeah.
You know, they were 5-12 last year with, you know, a head coach that didn't finish the season.
Yeah.
Sean Payton has, you know, a good reputation of making, you know, getting the very best out of teams.
Yeah.
You know, I think their over-under is 8.5.
Okay.
I'm hesitant. Like, I kind of want to pencil them in to be like a 9-8 team, steal the 7 seed, because there's going to be at least one or two teams that nobody sees coming, or everybody writes off. That like Seattle last year, everybody's penciling. Yep, they'll be a top 5 overall draft pick team. They end up being a playoff team because Geno Smith played, you know, out of his mind.
Right.
Could Denver be that team this year? Now, I think that it's certainly possible when you have a head coach like Sean Payton. That defense is really good. They have the weapons. They're clearly building to be a more run-centric team.
Yeah.
They bring in Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. They brought in Ben Powers, the guard from Baltimore. So I'm surprised that, you know, there hasn't been more traction of them trying to bring in Dalvin Cook and just have a 1-2 punch of him and Javonte Williams and make sure that the only thing that Russ cooks is like TV dinners. I gotta credit JP Acosta with that joke.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yes. So I think it's certainly possible that we talk about Denver as a team that snuck into the 7 seed. I don't think they'll win a playoff game, but I think there will be definite signs of improvement, and it won't be nearly as bad as it was last year.
Still got that secondary.
Yeah. Pat Surtain, Justin Simmons, two of the best of their positions.
Right. They got a bunch of guys on the offensive line who run hot and cold but can play. They lost a bunch of receivers last year, and if you look at all the names in the receiving core, like
they've got like 5 deep that they can go at receiver. I'm surprised that we haven't seen at least one of them get dealt for something that they would need.
Remember Peyton's core team of Saints? They were always shuttling a bunch of different receivers on. Yeah. There was always like a Lance Moore or
Devery Henderson
and all these other, and there was like duplication of all these things, and Colston and all these guys, and later it was Cooks and all of them. And Stills. So, yeah, he likes having that depth and, like, doing a lot of different formations there. You talked about the playoffs. You can get them at plus 180 to make the playoffs.
That's. I thought it would be closer to, like, plus 2 something. That's
more meat would be on the bone would be juicier. But, like, that I could see them. There's a scenario, and it's just basically Russ bounces back moderately and stay healthy, and they could be a playoff team.
And look, Russell Wilson doesn't have to be, like, MVP level Russell Wilson. If he's like 24 touchdowns, 9 picks, Russell Wilson, 3,800 yards, they run the ball a lot, they're fine. They don't need him to be Superman. They just need him to be, you know, a starting NFL quarterback. Right.
And you're right about last year. Like competent coaching, like getting coaching to close to league average was probably a win or two that they coughed up.
I was going to say their defense only allowed, I think, like 17 points a game. If they just averaged 8, they were held to 10 or fewer points 5 times last year. That's impressively bad.
Right.
They can do that. And poor Al Michaels was the victim of having to call that Colts game on Thursday night where he just couldn't be bothered to care. And him and Hershey were just shitting on everything that was happening by the time the fourth quarter rolled around. It was hilarious.
Right. And I think the red zone was their worst part. Like they were like, I know for a long time they were 32nd. I don't know if they finished 32nd in red zone efficiency. But yeah, you got down close. It's like now you actually have to run precision because that's how you get in the end zone is precision. And it's like there was no precision anywhere in the Hackett and Wilson world, you know.
And the thing, well, Russell too. I mean, he's never just been a short yardage, precise, eat you up, death by 1,000 cuts. He's balls to the wall downfield.
Right.
And that's kind of what he's always been. It's worked out a lot in the past because of, the continuity that he had and the understanding of the offensive system. But, last year was very much an adjustment year. And now with Peyton coming in, I think everything will, kind of get calmed down. I think everybody will know, okay, there's one cook in the kitchen here, and it's Sean Payton.
I don't know, based on all the quotes I've heard from Peyton, that calm down is the right word. It could boil over before it cools off.
They are one thing that we'll be able to say about Denver. They won't be boring. That is certain.
They will not be boring.
Neither will the Las Vegas Raiders because they are going to be so bad. How long before Devontae Adams is cussing out Jimmy Garoppolo on the sideline?
I think Devontae's kind of professional. I don't think he'll do that, but quietly in the backdrop there will be trade me. It's just. I guess last week as camps were coming back and news was starting to fall, maybe the beginning of this week, and great news, Jimmy Garoppolo is cleared to play. And imagine where your organization is if you're gosh, we were sweating bullets about whether Jimmy Garoppolo, our starting quarterback on purpose in the year 2023 that we've discovered was hurt after we signed him to a contract because we let Derek Carr go and somehow downgraded while spending money. And we were sweating bullets that he was going to be okay. Thank God he's okay. Imagine where your organization is that you reached that level of thought process.
It's impressive how poorly run they've been.
Yes.
And the only hints of relevancy they've had in the past 2 decades has been because of Derek Carr. And,
yes.
They made him the scapegoat in all of this. And somehow Josh McDaniels, you and I have had many a conversation on the show about Josh McDaniels. Yeah. So anything that we've said, I mean, we can always say it so much, but if not for Mark Davis giving John Gruden so much guaranteed money that he couldn't afford to fire Josh McDaniels after this year, he kind of had to keep him around, they would have had somebody else in. Yeah, man, congratulations now that they have Marcus Peters. You can now name 3 Raiders defenders without Googling. That's pretty good. But there's still a lot of questions offensive line wise. Is Josh Jacobs clearly not happy that he didn't get a deal?
Yeah.
In that division with an incompetent head coach, a downgraded quarterback, a quarterback who's going to more than likely not play the entire season. You're going to have Jarrett Stidham starting a couple games. Mm-hmm. This is a team that's going to be in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the way McDaniels runs things, and it's
And plus Hunter Renfrow looks like he's not going to be around much longer. They could either just outright cut him if they can't find a trade partner, or trade him away. I don't know, man. There's clearly some signs of friction there. If you're saying, Hunter Renfrow is not a lock to make the final roster, that just says, he absolutely hates Josh McDaniels.
I'm looking at some of this, because I have not studied the lower level of their roster. And I'm seeing, whose name is just OJ Howard.
OJ Howard's on the roster.
Yeah, he's their 3rd tight end. Philip Dorsett is on the roster.
Oh, he's just bringing in former. At that point, it's just Hoyer's on the roster too. He's just bringing former Patriots.
Well, there's a lot of former, Brandon Bolden doesn't count. I almost say, okay, that's your assistant coach on the field. There's a lot of that. I just to think about the idea of the only time teams downgrade at quarterback on purpose is generally when they're going to the rookie.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have a rookie that they're turning to.
Right. Okay, when teams get worse at quarterback because the quarterback they have gets injured or old, that's usually what happens. Or they grab a guy and it turns out to be a mistake. We grab a obviously objectively lesser guy, but spent money on it. That never happens in the NFL. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain out how the Raiders got to that point. And the answer is Mark Davis, Josh McDaniels, and just incompetence and incompetence. two different flavors. A spumoni, a surf and tear of different kinds of incompetence. Like the fail son incompetence of Mark Davis with the fake Belichickian, I know everything in charge,
Right.
dictatorial Josh McDaniels incompetence.
Yeah. Josh McDaniels is like he's like Dwight Schrute, who like thinks he knows everything, and really everybody just makes fun of him and thinks he's a dork. That's what Josh McDaniels is.
I really think that's Patricia.
Oh, Patricia's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think McDaniels is actually capable of something like. I don't know if there's an Office parallel for McDaniels.
Who the hell is his name? I can't remember. The actor who plays him is in The Hangover.
Yeah. The guy who sang. The guy who was in the
yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember his character's name. I'm not like a big Office fanatic.
Right. I think it was Andy.
That's the name I had in my head. Okay.
Right.
We'll say Andy from The Office is Josh McDaniels and Patricia's Dwight.
Patricia's Dwight. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Your next pick then, as we move on from the AFC West.
Okay. Now this is where it gets tricky, and I'm going to go in terms of what I'm going to find interesting, not necessarily where I think the teams are good.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the NFC North.
Okay.
Okay. Which is one of the teams that I did for the FTN Almanac, Aaron Schatz's DVOA Almanac. I want to see the Lions. We know what it is with the Lions at this point. We're all interested in seeing what this looks like.
They're biting kneecaps and twisting nutsacks. They are going balls to the wall this season. They are sitting pretty.
Right. And then we got the interesting storylines. You've talked on the past, you cover the Bears a lot. The Bears don't have a lot of storylines. I want to see the Justin Fields experience with a real wide receiver, with a better offensive line, and with a little more depth behind that real wide receiver. I want to see all of that. I want to believe. It's like the X-Files. I want to believe. I don't believe, but I will. At least I want to see like a grand Gunyal running around in circles, throwing touchdowns, or a complete utter collapse along the way. I want to see that one or the other. Yeah,
I mean, everybody's kind of talked, one another's ear off about, we saw it with Jalen Hurts, we saw it with Josh Allen. Can we see it with Justin Fields? I think getting DJ Moore is certainly going to help. And look, I believe in Justin Fields. I think that he can take a step forward. Mm-hmm. He has to become a more consistent passer and a more efficient passer, though, in the process.
Yes.
A lot of that can be blamed on the fact that Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis were his top two receivers last year. That's a fair argument. If Darnell Mooney can stay healthy, if they can figure out a role for Chase Claypool and DJ Moore is there, that's perfect. Cole Kmet, too, at tight end. They just signed him to a 4-year, $50 million extension. Good for him.
Yep.
And the offense is going to be lenient on the run game as they were last year. I think it's going to be kind of a Suedo Ravens team that we saw prior to this coming season, with now with Todd Monken. What they have been, what we've been accustomed to seeing with Lamar Jackson, which is run first, let that set up, underneath RPO stuff.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields has the arm to gun it downfield, and DJ Moore is capable of winning those 50-50 balls. So I think they'll be better. I think that there's a good chance that they end up being a playoff team, just because I think that, the middle of the NFC is kind of just a toss-up.
Right.
But if the quarterback takes a step forward, you mentioned the offensive line upgrades, drafting Darnell Wright, bringing over Nate Davis from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I think offensively they'll be better. Defensively, they can't be worse than what they were last year against the run, and they brought in two good run stoppers and TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds to try to shore that up. I like Brisker at safety. They've got some guys, a lot of young talent. They have a clear vision, and that's get a lot of good young athletes that are scheme fits and see what happens.
It's a bad defense.
It was a horrid defense last year.
It was a hard defense last year. They got better. They strengthened linebacker, which isn't necessarily how you want to do it.
Sure.
But again,
they still don't have an edge rusher.
No, there is not an edge rusher who I would think would be like the top four, who could make the Eagles roster.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting that. Yeah.
Right. They don't have an edge rusher to make the Eagles roster at this point anywhere on their roster. But again, it's interesting. I want to believe. I want to see it. I want to see Jordan Love. And I want to see these dozens of different receivers and tight ends they brought in. So again, I don't know. We have a pretty high projection for the Packers. Let me look up the Packers projection. We have a 9.3 wins.
Wow.
Because it's one of the easiest schedules in the league. I'm not going to read the schedule off because I'm saving that. Okay. But defensively, that team should be better. And I love all these Like I can't wait to watch the Packers in the preseason because again, I think we're going to see a lot of love, and we're just going to see a lot of the 2 rookie tight ends and Musgrave and the other kid whose name just get Kraft. Okay, and all these, and so that makes them interesting. And I'm just going to end up here with the Vikings, and the Vikings are the Vikings. The Vikings, I think they're going to win 5 games. I think it's going to be a mess, but that's entertaining in its own right as we see this team sort of like Kismet come back and sort of take them down a notch.
Did you just hear that?
What was it?
That was like a large truck drive past my home.
I did not. I did not hear that.
Good. I'm glad that these headphones help them. So the thing with Minnesota, like, there's quarterbacks that people say, oh, you're going to get 10 wins if he's your quarterback. I think Kirk is like, you're going to get like 7 wins if he's your quarterback.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're not going to stink enough to be like near the top of the draft, but you're not going to be good enough to be a playoff team. He's like kind of the poster child for purgatory.
Right. Especially when he's got Jefferson to throw to. It's like that.
Yeah.
That stops you because I said 5 wins earlier. That was 2. That stops you at a certain point. Like you're going to win some games just because of that. Yeah.
And I think that Kevin O'Connell, the offense that they run, where it's very zone run based, play action based, TJ Hawkinson thrived off that. And I think he's going to be a big part of that offense this year. The offense is still going to be productive, even without Dalvin Cook. I think they still got guys that'll be more than capable of carrying the offense. Defensively, like we talked about the Bears defense being bad. Ed Donatell's defense last year was god awful. They bring in Brian Flores, which is a tremendous upgrade, but they also have a lot of holes on that defense too. Yeah. I'm surprised that Harrison Smith stuck around. They no more Shannon Sullivan, no more Patrick Peterson, no more Zadarius Smith. Now, Shannon Sullivan wasn't very good in the nickel. Now he's Pittsburgh's gain problem. I don't know. We'll find out.
Right.
So they're still building on that side of the ball. They're going to have to win a lot of 35, 34 games this year.
Yeah, and I don't think they have a lot of 35 to 34 wins in there. And I like Flores as a coach, but I always go back to Donatell's defense was like that in part because of Donatell and in large part because he did not have the personnel. He did not have any speed on his back 7. So it's like when you used to play NCAA Madden, not Madden, but NCAA football, and like you were the startup school, like you were Vanderbilt in the SEC or whatever, and it's like you have to play cover 3 all the time because they are faster than you.
You're trying to take Tulsa to the BCS championship game.
Exactly. And like the other team is just faster than you, so you're backing up all the time, and that's a little bit of what we saw last year. You're going to see a little bit of it this year because they do not have a lot at cornerback. They do not have a lot at the edge besides Hunter and all the guys you've heard of, like Harrison Smith. You've heard of them because they're 35 years old.
Yeah, that was last. They were old, man. Like you had Patrick Peterson as your CB1. Harrison Smith is still like they're still fine, but they're not changing your defense anymore. These are guys that are, respected veterans and whatnot, but they're not moving the needle.
No. Now, one thing that happens is when you do kind of extend contracts, you can't do a tight rebuild.
Yeah.
And the Saints are saying this. I think Buccaneers and Rams fans are kind of saying it now. You can't just like, okay, we reboot. No, you extended all of that money 2 or 3 years. The reboot's going to be, you have to like stop a train.
Yeah.
And the Vikings had a little bit of that. They didn't have the success of the other 2 teams, but they had all these contracts that were extended so far out, including Kirk's. That you can't just trade Kirk. You can't just cut Kirk. You couldn't trade and cut all of the guys you wanted to this year. So you have to say goodbye to Thielen, and you have to say goodbye to Peterson. You have to say goodbye to Anthony Barr 2 years ago, et cetera. You can't say goodbye to all of them because you can't have all that dead money at once.
Yeah. All right. So I've got 3 divisions left to work with. None of them are great. I'll take the division that's very top heavy, but could be somewhat exciting. I'll take the AFC South.
Oh, okay.
Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence. He's my pick to win MVP this year. I think him and Ridley are going to make beautiful music. You have Kirk in the slot. Zay Jones is your 3. They'll go, putting Ingram in the slot when they go 4 wide. I think the offense is going to be tremendous. And when you sneak in Agnew and Etienne as well, like there's so many different ways that they can kill you. And when Doug Peterson is your play designer and play caller, they're going to have a lot of fun offensively. Defensively, I want to see more off the back end though, because Rayshon Jenkins, like God bless his soul, he's a dog, and I'd love to have him in my locker room. But they need, I would pencil them in as somebody to watch to try to get like someone like Budda Baker to put next to Andre Sisco, because I think that would give them a nice upgrade on the back end.
Yeah,
And then
Baker's been appeased, so he's sticking with the Cardinals.
Is he? How have I missed this, Mike Tanier?
I'm almost certain, unless I got mixed up, that he was given like some bonus money to report. So,
well, gosh darn it, there goes my big theory.
Okay.
Well, regardless, I think I want to see more from Walker. I want to see more from Josh Allen. Like, they brought back Dwayne Smoot as well. Like, there's guys in their front seven that are fine. I want to see them kind of take that next step forward to solidify themselves as, next level guys that I want to see them continue to grow. And then the rest of the division, we're going to see 3 rookies at some point. We'll see CJ Stroud. We'll see Anthony Richardson. I think we're going to see Will Levis.
Yeah.
It would shock me if we didn't. You look at the first 6 games of the Titans schedule. I mean, it's very possible they start, 2-6, 3-5. Now they go into a bye. They come off the bye against Atlanta. At home against Atlanta, I think that's a decent place to, give Will Levis his first start.
Yeah.
Yeah, the division is, if you're betting against Jacksonville to win it, then I salute you. But
Jacksonville is minus 155 to win the division.
That's it.
Minus 150. That's like Chiefs level.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Chiefs are minus 165. So
I'm surprised that Jacksonville isn't more favored than Kansas City would be in the West, considering what Kansas City has. Like, I understand the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But there's much more formidable competition, at least from one team, maybe 1.5, depending on how Denver looks, compared to Jacksonville, where it's just new foundations in Houston and Indy. And then Vrabel, who thinks that the Titans are still a playoff contender when everybody else in the league sees that they should just commit to a rebuild.
Yeah, they're another team that has Tannehill money and Derrick Henry money and things like that couldn't stop on a dime.
Do you think that they move him this year? Move Derrick Henry?
No, who's going to take a running back with 6 million carries? The only thing would be at the actual trade deadline. That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah, some actual 7-0 team, and says a 5th round pick to bring Derrick Henry in to be the. I don't see that. I don't see that. So
let's say the Dolphins are like 5-2, and if you think that Derrick Henry, it's kind of like a rental trade in hockey at the deadline, where they'll bring in a bunch of guys that won't see contracts from this team. They're just trying to go balls to the wall and get a Stanley Cup win. I think we could see that in terms of a team like Miami if they think that Derrick Henry can take them over the hump.
Yeah, I got to see Ezekiel Elliott sign with a team first, and Cook. I mean, the Jets are courting Cook, whatever, as we see right now. But I mean, that would be the logical thing, and the Dolphins would be the team to drop a 2nd round pick.
Yeah,
what on earth just happened? I'm like, this is us. This is what we're doing, and it kind of fall apart down the road. But I mean, I like Henry. I want to go back for a second because again, this conference is madness. But you talk about the Jaguars. The Jaguars default over under 9.5, which makes sense. But if you're a believer in the Jaguars to win a lot of games because of the division, here at DraftKings, which I'm looking at, you can get sliders and you can play sliders. You go up to 11.5 wins for the Jaguars, and you can get over at plus 220.
That's fantastic value.
Right. So 12-5, and you say, okay, 5-1 in that division.
Yeah,
5-1 in that division with that offense.
And plus, most of their difficult games are played at home this year, so they've got that advantage to them.
Right. So you can juice up that over-under total and get some pretty good money lines. And it's worth looking into. And the Jaguars are a team I have my eye on because they seem like they're such a cut above their division that they'll just get a natural boost from that.
Yeah, and like I said, their offense is going to be great. It's just they have a lot of guys that you really like defensively, but none that you love.
A lot of draft. I loved him in the draft, guys. I loved him in the draft, guys.
Yes, that's a very good way of putting that.
Right.
I think that Houston could be better than people think because they quietly have a better roster than most would imagine. It's just their receivers, man. It's Nico Collins. They drafted Tank Dell, who you and I both really liked in the draft.
Robert Woods.
Right, yeah, Bobby Trees. Yeah, thank God. What could possibly go wrong with 33-year-old Robert Woods?
Oh my gosh!
Who else is that? I'm gonna have to pull up their depth.
They have Devin Singletary now.
Yeah, they've got a nice collection of back with Singletary and Pierce. They've got 2 good tackles with Howard and Tunstall. And then defensively, Jalen Petrie, they brought over Jimmy Ward, who followed D'Amico Ryans there, Stingley. Like, they've got a collection of guys that are good. It's just, who is CJ Stroud going to be throwing to? That's, that would be more than a wide receiver 3 on a good team.
One of the things is the GM down there is very good at finding a decent veteran. So every year, we did this last year, Aaron Schatz and I, and it's like they have so many decent veterans that we start putting them down for 7 wins. Yeah. And the fact is, if we look at them and say, ooh, that 29-year-old is still decent, they probably aren't. Like Robert Woods was a great example last year. Oh, he's still probably pretty good when the Titans pick it. He wasn't getting these guys on the downside, and there becomes an accretion of that. And yeah, they've got some high first-round picks too. Maybe they're the second best team in that division. That's fine.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not going to look that up right now to see what the odds are, but like they're still bad. They're still bad.
Yeah. So let's look at their receivers real quick. It's Nico Collins, Robert Woods, John Mechie. Good story coming back from the cancer treatment. Yep. Noah Brown, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson. Amari Rogers.
Amari Rogers, who cannot actually run fast. This is Noah Brown, who is a special teams ace, and like it's a collection of these guys. Steven Sims is there too. He's been around the block.
He's more of a kick return guy. Steven Sims is than anything. Jalen Camp, like
right. Xavier Hutchinson is got big hands. Like that's kind of his.
Yeah, he's another. Hey, he'll be fun to watch in Mobile guy.
Right. I think he was.
He was. Yes.
Yeah. So was Tank, and Tank's 137 pounds soaking wet. So I hope so. But Tank is going to be like, what was that kid's name that like Bill O'Brien was always running around out there doing the trick plays? Oh my God, no, I'm drawing a blank.
Wait, who was doing trick plays where?
For the Texans a couple of years back. Like he was always on the damn field, and I'm like, why is this kid out here? Little speedster. I'm going to look him up. I'm vamping.
Little speedster.
Kiki Cutie.
Kiki Cutie.
He's still in the NFL somewhere, and he can run, but like he should be in the USFL. He'd be a superstar. Kiki Cutie. And like,
oh, I love that. That's
and this is like Will Fuller is supposed to, track speed on one side, Nuke on the other.
By the way, Will Fuller just got hurt because you said his name.
Yes. Yeah, so he was a fantasy football all-star. Anyway, we should probably start moving here. It's getting a little on the.
It is, yeah. So I picked the AFC South. Who are you taking as this will be your final pick?
This is my final pick, and just so I can talk about them, I'm going to go with the weakest division because it's the most interesting division. It's a division where there might be some fun prop bets, and we're going with the NFC South.
Yes, let's talk about this dumpster fire.
Let's talk about the NFC South now. I'm going to pull up the Saints. I'm not going to pull up the Saints payroll because I will cry. And I'm not going to talk about Jimmy Graham rejoining the Saints because if I
what the hell,
they'll sign Reggie Bush again on a dare. Saints have the easiest schedule in the NFL. That's what I'm pulling up. Saints open with the Titans. Okay.
In a battle of the damned.
Then they travel to the Panthers, who will be week 2 of their rookie quarterback starting.
Mm-hmm.
Then they travel to the Packers, which will be week 3 of the Jordan Love experience. Then they host the Buccaneers with the Kyle Trask is being force-fed the job because I think Jason Light is trying to prove something. But by then it'll be Baker. Then New England Patriots. The toughest quarterback so far has been Mac Jones. Then they get the Texans, at Houston. But again, we're probably seeing C.J. Stroud throwing to Tank Dell. This could be a very bad Saints team, but like if Derek Carr is out there and all the defensive old timers are still healthy and Chris Olave is healthy and Michael Thomas, well, whatever, that's 5-1.
If the New Orleans Saints start the year 5-1, Mike Tanier, I'm going to be the guy who, at every chance I get, is just going to scream from the mountaintop, yelling at clouds about how bad they are. When you're going to see all these morning shows, like, oh my goodness, are the Saints like a contender? No, they're not.
Right. And we should all be able to see this coming, yet we're all going to be very credulous when it happens. And like, there are no Eagles on this. There are no Bills on this. There are no Chiefs on this. There are no Bengals on this. So on the one hand, everything I named was teams that are very easy or have a rookie quarterback or both. But on the other hand, that higher level team, like the toughest opponents on here, like the Lions, and the Jaguars, like that is the ceiling here. So It's very easy to spot an 11-win season from the Saints. Again, a lot of veterans, a veteran quarterback who knows how to play the position. And like that's really all they need to do that.
I'm going to be so annoyed because there's going to be so many media people whom we know and respect.
Yes,
are going to be all over this. Like, oh my goodness, look at Derek Carr throwing against throwing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, dude, it's the Buccaneers.
Right.
Like, let's relax a little bit.
Right.
Oh, man. Well, remember a few years ago when the Bears went on that run and somehow made the playoffs, and we were forced to watch them play the Saints in the playoffs?
Yes.
It's going to be that. It's going to be just like that.
With Foles at quarterback or somebody.
Jesus H.
And the thing is, what'll bother me is all cap is fake. Cap isn't real. See, that proves it. This team is like $16 trillion in debt for the foreseeable future. Okay, they're going to keep doing variations on this season. Like, yes, no one said that you can't go out there and spend money on everybody and win 10 games after Tom Brady retires. We all know that is a possibility in this world. This team they're going to go out there, and get obliterated by the Cowboys or the Eagles or the 49ers in the playoffs, but they are probably going to make it to the playoffs. And the one challenger that could stop them are the Atlanta Falcons with Desmond Ridder as their quarterback and their fans that have gone over the moon and out the wazoo in terms of insanity here about all these guys like Tyler Algier and Drake London, who I don't think are actually really good, but like got a lot of bulk stats and things like that. And
they were the best of a bad bunch that got a lot of targets and touches.
Yeah, and like they can play. Offensive line Atlanta is good. Defense has been improved. They brought in a bunch of guys. But that's another team. Like, and if you're playing over unders, you got to look for them because that's a 10-7 team based on I think the second. I'd have to look it up. The second easiest schedule. I want to tell you right now. We have Atlanta. This is the FTN Aaron Schatz Football Almanac. Atlanta at 10 wins. New Orleans at 9.9. I tend to flip those in my brain. 10 wins for the Atlanta Falcons. All right, I'll pull up the schedule since you're looking at me like that. Open with the Panthers, then the Packers. Okay, both games at home.
Both are at home.
Yes. Okay. Lions, Jaguars, both in the road. So maybe you're 2-2 at that point. Maybe you're 1-3. Then home against the Texans, probably a win. The Commanders. Okay. Then
that'll be a sneaky fun game.
At the Buccaneers, at the Titans. Then Vikings, then Cardinals. Then
God. Desmond Ridder's gonna throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns against the Cardinals, isn't he? And everybody in November is gonna be like, Desmond Ridder's him. They found the guy.
He's him. Yeah.
And if you think not, then something's wrong with you, and you're just deciding not to see it. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Jesus.
Right. As they grind the ball off on the ground with like handoffs to Cordell Patterson and Tyler Algier.
Bijan Robinson's going to have 9 trillion touches in this offense.
I forgot Bijan is in there too. Yeah. Yes. That's the thing. They're going to, and the line is good. The offensive line is good. So they're going to be able to plow their way. That record, 6-4 with that.
That's doable.
Could go 6-4 against that record, and a mediocre team, the Falcons will.
They're gonna the winner of the NFC South is gonna host a playoff game against Philadelphia or Dallas, and they're gonna be TCU in this past year's college. They're just gonna get absolutely massacred, just slapped around. Jesus, that is a phenomenal looking division. Hey, is there a worst head coach quarterback combination in the league right now than Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield?
Oh my God, that's a horrible combination.
I don't think there's a worse one because you have a coach who is the poster child for living in his fears.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
And Baker Mayfield, who is a beer bong with a face.
But don't forget that the GM was really pushing Trask.
What is up with that, by the way? Does he just want to be that right about drafting Kyle Trask in the second round?
Very possible. It's very possible that he wants to be that right. But you're right. Again, I don't necessarily want to rip Bowles, but Bowles is a guy you either obviously want a great quarterback or you want your cousins in there where it's like, okay, I know this is a known commodity.
Yeah.
And so I can focus on my defense and be like, oh, well, 3rd and 18, he threw a screen pass or Jefferson caught one-handed a 19-yarder for you and you're fine. But you don't want that unknown commodity because that's going to be change the quarterback. Change the quarterback. Change the quarterback. And that's what Bowles is going to be. So anyway, that's what they are. The Buccaneers are like this money-saving operation right now. And the Panthers, we're going to watch the development of a rookie quarterback, and we got Frank Reich, and they don't have enough pieces.
I mean, I like what they're building in Carolina,
Yeah.
especially on the defensive side of the ball. They got a lot of good young talent there. They'll be switching schemes and whatnot, going from a 4-3 to a 3-4 with Giro Evero coming in.
Right.
But Frank Reich, I like Frank Reich. I think that he'll raise their floor, and I think that they'll be relevant.
Yeah.
From what they went through last year, transitioning from Rule, Steve Wilkes, and still somehow being in a playoff race in like week 16 because the division was so bad.
Right.
I think that they'll be a tough out every week.
Yes, that's a good way. Yeah. They're not going to embarrass themselves every week.
No.
But that's where they are. So.
All right, what's that leave me with? I guess that's what, the NFC West?
That leaves you with two very good teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised the NFC West went last.
Yeah.
I just think it's like outside of Seattle and San Francisco, it's just boring.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The Cardinals are going to be awful. Do you think Jonathan Gannon's a one and done? I do.
Oh, the only reason why I wouldn't jump on that and say absolutely yes is because they reconfigured their front office. If he was there and Keim was still bouncing around, and who knows, Keim might be on the burner phone. I might be on the burner phone right now. I'm still the boss. I'm still the boss. Was it Mike Bidwell? Whichever.
Bidwell, yeah.
That end. But let's wait and see. Gannon left Eagles fans with a bad taste in his mouth. I think he was very much consolation prize for a team in turmoil to get him. But he should get a mulligan from this year where we don't know when Kyler Murray is going to show up. It's going to be Colt McCoy. It's totally a just get through the year there.
I'm wondering, though, because they're going to be starting some combination of Clayton Tune, David Blau, Colt McCoy for some portion of this season. And if they're sitting at 1-7, 1-8, if I'm Kyler Murray, why am I coming back to play? If I'm the Cardinals, why am I risking Kyler Murray to come back and play at that point? And if I'm Monty Ossenfort, I'm not tied to Kyler Murray. If I have a chance to get Caleb Williams and move Murray somewhere, that's something that is definitely going to be on my mind if I'm the Cardinals front office. Yeah,
and that's one of those things that becomes self-fulfilling because if Kyler Murray starts to say, I'm going to balk at the possibility of coming back this year in any way, and then the GM starts rolling with it, then it's well, now you have to go to Caleb Williams. And then does it become a he said thing about why he's not playing? And that's one of the things that whiff is going to surround Murray. So that might in turn make Murray and Gannon say, "Oh, let's rush back out there." And I don't want to see all of that. I would rather say, okay, Murray's healthy in week 5, put him out there in week 5, and let's start moving here. But that's not the way this team's built right now.
And the other thing that makes me think that Gannon could be, a one and done in this situation is because of the crop of head coaching candidates that will be at their disposal, plus the possibility of getting a Caleb Williams or a Drake May. If I'm the Cardinals and I have a chance of having Ben Johnson be my head coach and offensive game planner with Caleb Williams or Drake May compared to Jonathan Gannon with Kyler Murray, I know which one I want, and it isn't Gannon and Murray.
Right.
So that'll come down to how much money Bidwell wants to spend and whatnot, and how comfortable he'll be with dishing out that kind of money, but it's something that to think about.
And which other organizations are out there looking for head coaches that don't have this sheen of you guys don't do properly,
Yeah. Oh goodness. All right. And then San Francisco, in 20 years, we are going to have flying cars. We'll have food and pill version, and the San Francisco 49ers are still going to be having question marks about who their week 1 starter will be.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing has changed here. Brock Purdy's cleared. That was somewhat surprising.
Yep.
It looks like he'll be, without any sort of restraints, he'll be the starter for week 1 against Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens with Trey Lance.
Yeah, if so, they should be trying to move Lance, and I think that they will. I see the 49ers talking themselves another Garoppolo cycle.
Yep.
Where Purdy is this sort of Mac Jones-esque individual who, was able to do things well when everything around him was structured properly.
Yes.
And if you keep talking him into that, then that's what you're going to get. And that they talked themselves into Garoppolo for 3 years, then talked themselves out of Garoppolo, and then they had to bring Garoppolo back, and then they brought in Purdy to be the next Garoppolo. And through all of it, Trey Lance has found ways to be injured. So
that's another big thing. The Lance injury really was the ginormous wrench in all of this.
It was, and again, all the output of expense to get Lance and all the expectations around Lance and the fact that Lance remains this sort of black box that we can just we can pretend to know anything about him when we have like 130 attempts like in the rain and stuff like that. And then like video from 2 years earlier that we saw during the draft.
And like 2 really great throws in preseason from the last 2 years.
2 great throws in preseason and the 2019 North Dakota State Bisons video that we were watching in 2020, like during a pandemic, to try and figure out who this kid was. Like, let's get real. This is like unknown territory, but you know, he should have trade value. The question is, what's his trade value? If you're the Niners, you say, oh, Purdy's our guy now, 100%. What's that do to Lance's trade value? Like, you don't want to say, you don't want him to compete. This kid goes 6-0 and he gets and the other kid gets leapfrogged.
I think that comes back to something that you pointed out about the Bears situation earlier this year is like, okay, the fact that the Bears would even consider trading Justin Fields devalues him immediately.
Yeah.
So
it's a signal.
It's the same thing for Lance.
Year that this isn't an injury or a couple of injuries. We're not completely satisfied. Everyone can hear it. So nobody shows up except like the one goofy GM whose owner said, get this guy no matter what. No one shows up with the high pick.
How much do you think that Kyle Shanahan quietly hopes that Sam Darnold has to play for like a month this year just so he can look like a genius? I think that is not a small part of this, is that Kyle Shanahan just wants to look like the smartest guy in the room.
Oh, yes. I think there's a little bit of that. I think Lynch has got a little bit of that too. Mm-hmm. And they're driven by that. But like, that's why they're in this situation right now. Smartest guy in the room. We're going to go trade up to get the kid from North Dakota State that nobody's seen. And he's slow to develop, and then he's hurt, and then he's hurt again. Oh, but the 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, did all of this. There's no way that can be a fluke. That has to be a testament to our acumen, and not the fact that you throw a screen pass to Deebo Samuel and he breaks 12 million tackles. You know, so I mean,
but Mike, look what he does off platform. For the 3 examples, that we have.
Oh my God. Twitter, I'm glad Twitter's dying, because it's like we reached peak. You know, based on these 3 throws, we can make like congratulations, you've learned some jargon, and now you're like stringing gifts together of a quarterback. 3 examples of something in like 275 passes. Thank you.
Yeah. How good do you think that the Seahawks are going to be? Is Geno going to be? I don't think he's going to be exactly what it was last year, but is he going to be close to that? Or the Seahawks going to be formidable?
I think they're going to be a strong team. Obviously, if you look at the NFC, there's a shortage of good wildcard teams.
Yeah, and their draft blew me away.
Yeah.
You said, all right, we've got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Well, eat this. We're getting Jackson Smith and Jigba. All right, we got Tariq Woolen and a really good secondary. All right, we're going to add Devin Witherspoon to it as well, and there's nothing you can do about it. So shove it.
And it's weird that like their draft was good, because that's not a Seahawks thing. But
it's not. It's really not.
They've never said, "Oh, let's get a slot receiver." I think you have to go back to Percy Harvin.
Rashad Penny in the first round. Come on down.
Right. And then a punter. And it looks like Witherspoon will be signing in the next couple of days. That turned into a little thing, but he's going to be in. Yeah, they're strong up and down. And yeah, Geno Smith, I don't know. I'm not this huge believer in early season Geno, but like, you know, this is a conference where we're talking about Danny Jones. Like, you know, what can Daniel Jones do? What can Jordan Love do? Did Geno Smith be out there and be kind of a mobile, play within structure, make a good decision? Absolutely. With 3 good receivers, good tight end, Noah Fant, couple of 6,000 good running backs. So they keep
a bunch of good running backs.
Yeah. Decent line now, strong defense. Yeah, he can absolutely be that guy.
I think that Pete Carroll and the Seahawks deserve an immense amount of credit for maybe seeing that maybe Russ was kind of declining and realizing, we can turn this into something and still be, relevant. Seattle has turned into Geno Smith was a beautiful deep ball as well. Maybe the most beautiful in the league, pound for pound.
Right. I'd love to see him have the late career that guys like Jeff Hostetler had.
He definitely had like his Tommy Maddox year. I would like to see him have a little bit more of a elongated success than Maddox did.
Right. That you're out there as this wily guy, and like Tannehill's had a little bit of it. Have that kind of second career where you're out there and you're the wily veteran for a while, and let's see how far it takes you.
The Los Angeles Rams. It's it's Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and 50 other LinkedIn applicants.
Oh my goodness, Logan Bruss. That's their right guard.
That's their starting right guard.
Let's see if I can find another obscure. Like, these are people I cannot identify. Christian Rosaboom is listed.
Everyone pointed out him too when we were talking about.
They've got a Rosaboom and a Noteboom. I know who Noteboom is. Notaboom. Michael is one of their linebackers. A lot of these guys I'm named Bobby Brown. His prerogative is to be the nose tackle.
Half of Boys to Men is on the Los Angeles Rams defense.
No, that's not Boys to Men. Bobby Brown was oh shoot, was it Bell Biv DeVoe? No, it was damn it. Damn it. What was Bobby Brown? It was not Boys to Men. That's a
I'll Google it real quick while you keep running through. Okay.
Him, Aaron Donald, and Marquise Copeland are the defensive line right now. Russ Yeast. There's actually an ingredient in beer starting at safety for this team. He who laughs last yeast.
I cannot find this.
Bobby Brown first band. It was not Bell Biv DeVoe because he's not Bell Biv or DeVoe. But it was in that era. You're making me look it up. I don't know why. What this is.
He was married to Whitney Houston?
Yes, oh my God, you didn't know that?
I did not know that. So I'm seeing music labels.
New Edition, dude. New Edition.
Okay.
He was part of New Edition. And then he had a huge hit with My Prerogative. He did the theme to Ghostbusters 2.
Did he?
I think.
Is that him singing that?
He's not singing Ghostbusters 1, the one
where okay.
Where there's something strange in the neighborhood.
Yes.
My lawyer, because that was actually the guy who did that was sued by Huey Lewis. Anyway, we're in the 80s.
Really?
I'm going to stop. But yes, Bobby Brown of My Prerogative fame, married to Whitney Houston, is now playing nose tackle.
Good for him.
Now, for fairness, it is Bobby Brown the third. It could very well be his son.
It could very well be
his son. But he is no Russ Yeast.
Yeah, there is the Rams. I don't know what they're doing. I think they're kind of in this Titans phase where like they're convincing themselves that they can still make the playoffs. And McVay's still there. Stafford came back, but how good is his arm? Yeah. Aaron Donald got a nice payday.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp, but outside of him, who are they throwing to? Right. Offensive line's bad. Outside of that, they're great. You know,
it's very good. You look it down, and like all they have is late round picks from the last couple of years, undrafted free agents from the last couple of years.
Puka Nakua's there too, I guess. I like Puka Nakua.
I mean, yeah, like draft pickies. Nakua is a good fun ball player. DeMarcus Robinson's on the roster right now.
Is that where he landed?
That's where he landed. All these guys who were the number 3 guy for the Chiefs who look good because Mahomes and like you're not being covered by anybody. They still have Van Jefferson who can play. Ben Skronik is bad. He's like one of their receivers.
He's just that fun white guy that all of our uncles like because he's a fun white guy.
Right. And again, that's Cooper Kupp's role. Okay. And then, you know, and like, I'm not talking about guys like, okay, Kobe Durant is listed as starting nickelback. He was a draft binky I liked. Mm-hmm. Okay. Darian Kendrick, who was a Georgia starter, but he ran a slow 40. I don't think he's going to be an NFL player. I think he was one of these slow guys who got, you know, like the quarterback's already dead, so you don't have to cover the guy deep downfield because he already got like smothered. Cam Akers is the only running back of note on the team. Oh, Sonny Michael is still on the roster, but like,
okay,
this is telling us we either keep talking about 80s hip hop or we've bottomed out.
Well, the perfect transition because I teased something to you in the lobby. So our good friend JP Acosta, he tweeted out earlier in a single elimination tournament of all 32 NFL head coaches, who is winning in terms of like a fight club? Who would be if you had to go? So if we like split them up into like AFC, NFC, my final 4 would be in the AFC would be Mike Vrabel.
Yes.
Who did it? Hold on, I tweeted this. I want to make sure I don't mess up my groups. So Vrabel is definitely one half of my AFC bracket. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it would be, if I can find it, goodness gracious. Who did I put? Mike Vrabel and...
Let's see. I'm trying to go through them in my mind.
Yeah, because for some reason I can't see.
It's not going to be Nathaniel Hackett, I don't think.
It won't be Nathaniel Hackett. It won't be Sean Payton.
It won't be Indika McGee over there in Miami. It ain't going to be
the hell?
Staley.
I'm really okay. Here we go.
Okay.
So my AFC bracket would be final two would be Mike Vrabel and Robert Saleh. Something about Robert Saleh. I think he's making it to the finals.
Okay.
And then NFC side, I'm going with a Cinderella story in Frank Reich. He just looks like the walking embodiment of a Marlboro Red. Like I think, like he could be the guy that's just smoking at the end of the bar and a fight breaks out, and without even taking the cigarette out of his mouth, he stands up, takes his bar stool, beats the hell out of somebody, sits the stool back down, and sits back on it. So Frank Reich and Dan Campbell in the NFC. And then my final would be Vrabel versus Dan Campbell in a bloody battle full of dad grunts that are just that would do a great buy rate on pay-per-view.
It would be Campbell versus Vrabel. There's no question.
I think so.
There's not a lot of like scary muscle in the NFC in terms of coaching.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like the AFC is like kind of like the throwback wrestling, like big, muscly guys, and then the NFC is like a lot of flips and luchadors. The boy genius types.
Yeah, a lot of boy geniuses and dude bras, like Sirianni's more of a dude bra. Yeah, Frank Reich is a little more of the steal your girl at the bar guy, like the DILF who comes in and makes a move and walks out, than necessarily a fighter. But yeah, I'm not sure who I'd put against Campbell, but whoever I put against Campbell would get beaten by Campbell in the NFC. And I think Vrabel versus Saleh is a good undercard on that to see who wins. That would be nip and tuck.
I think that Pete Carroll could be a sneaky guy to get to like the Sweet 16.
Yes, like where he takes you down with like a sensei move right off the bat, like old guy strength and like a maneuver you've never seen before, like the beginning of every karate film, or the drill sergeant, the drill sergeant who's like old, like Lee Marvin taking the guy down twice his size. Yeah, I could see Carroll having that up his sleeve. Belichick probably has that up his sleeve too. But,
oh yeah, I could see Belichick just being like an undercover sociopath who could just beat ass.
Well, yeah, your car explodes in the parking lot.
You just see a guy in a hoodie.
There's not gonna be a fight today. There's not gonna be a fight. Don't know what happened.
No, we're on to Cincinnati. Goodness gracious, Mike Tanier, I always enjoy our time together, my friend.
Absolutely.
What if you can tell me what you've got coming in the certain coming weeks?
Okay, you start by going to FTN. I don't know their call letters, but if you check out, you go in FTN Almanac, Google it, search it, you'll find it. Aaron Schatz, DVOA, me, Aaron, Brian Knowles, Derek Clausen, all those guys. We're all back. We're all doing the Almanac that many of us have been doing for 19 years. It's at FTN. Check them out. They're like a fantasy gambling site. I will be employed again in a few days. I have officially gone from unemployed to on vacation over the last few days. I cannot announce it yet. But by next week, you will find me on Twitter and on Threads as Mike Tanier, as I'm transitioning away from this nonsense. Okay.
Does that mean I got to re-download Threads? Because man, I don't know. I don't think I was a fan of Threads. Maybe it's just because it's new.
You're on a sinking ship right now. And like all the other ones, I think Blue Sky, Mastodon, they were interesting. I like dabbled in them. This is the one owned by, and like people like, well, Zuck's a scumbag too. And like this guy, I don't care who's a scumbag. I want a scumbag who runs their social network right. They're all billionaires are scumbags, but like some of them make really good TV shows or catch up or whatever. Zuck makes the social networks actually work properly. He's making Threads. I'm on there.
Well, then I'll use it a little bit. I'll try having fun on Threads. In terms of me, stuff for Behind the Steel Curtain, go check out all the Steelers stuff there. Stuff for Touchdown Wire and USA Today. A few new ones. The running back problem and how I would solve it. That's on USA Today. It's an out-of-the-box way of thinking about it that the NFL will never adopt, but it is, I think it's smart. And then, a bunch of other stuff. So go read all of that, USA Today. Mike Tanier, always enjoy talking to you, my friend. We'll do this again soon as training camp rolls on, and we're getting closer to football being back every weekend. It's gonna be fun.
Thank heavens! I think the Hall of Fame game is the end of next week.
It is next Thursday.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. This has been the Punt Fake. We'll see you next week.